Pakistani journalists are not even fit to polish Mehdi Hasan's shoes. With all due respect to shoe polishing as a business, they're not. So for them to go after him, the trolls for them to go after Mehdi like that was ill-advised to say the very least, and absolutely ridiculous and stupid to say again the very least. Hello and welcome to the Drawing Room Experts. This is me, Zaib, back with another episode after quite a few weeks of a lot of material in terms of me thinking of weighing in on them. I almost had to really think about it this time and say like, okay, किन topics पे बात की जा सकती है, and something that I feel strongly about or not. And as you know, I mean, I try to get these episodes done at least once a week, time permitting. But not that's obviously not always the case. Mainly because I just don't want to put them out just for the sake of it. Anyway, without any further ado, today's topic, as you probably saw or on YouTube or wherever you guys are listening or watching this, it is going to be about anti-Semitism and how lazy loyalty gets in the way of just the most easiest things. Sometimes you feel like Mr. Hasan kya cheez hogi, and then your loyalties come in the middle and your ego makes things worse than it has to be. As you probably know, I mean, I don't really like to delve into current topics too much. I try to take inspiration from them and discuss a wider problem or a wider or try to make a wider point. But in this particular episode, I think it's very important to give you context as to why I'm discussing anti-Semitism or lazy loyalty. I still haven't decided which to use as a title for this episode, but the idea is that something happens in my life or around me, and be it political, religious, social, and if it triggers me to think, if it gets me to do a little bit of research, read about things online, those are the kind of things, excuse me, I tend to talk about. In this particular instance, as I said, I like to keep things really off topic, in the sense that it can be heard or listened to whenever people decide to discover this, and I want it to be time bound, where they'll be like, what was this about? Maybe it was just a specific discussion around a specific period of time. So for this particular discussion of anti-Semitism, the context obviously is Shah Mehmood Qureshi, who's Pakistan's foreign minister. His recent interview, which I hinted on during the episode with Nikhil as well. His recent interview on CNN went viral for the wrong reasons, of course. And the reaction to that in the Pakistani circles, even people that I admire and respect, they kind of like reacted in a very strange and I don't want to say disappointed way, because that disappointing is probably too harsh a word, but I think that's how I felt. Maybe it's not reflecting so much on their actions, but mostly reflecting on my feelings towards those actions, which was that of disappointment. And I think that is more of an issue, as opposed to whatever Shah Mehmood Qureshi said, as big an issue that was as well. But let's dive into it. Let's unpack it a little bit and try and during the course of this episode, I'll try and explain, hopefully to our Pakistani audiences and people living in Pakistan, or people living here who are Pakistani who felt the way, most of the Pakistani people felt back home. Um, and the purpose is just to explain the sensitivities in play here. I am by no means an expert in anti-Semitism or Jewish history or world history or any history for that matter, but I think I have just a little bit of understanding as to what the issue is, trying to maybe become a bridge between two opposing school of thoughts. Um, so, as you know, this whole current crisis in the Middle East. I mean, this word probably could be repeated, years and years, and nobody would know which particular crisis am I referring to. But this, in the instance, the recent clashes that got triggered in Palestinian territories through Israel's barbaric occupation. And in context of that, and a lot of forced evictions were happening, and this whole thing started from there. The recent thing, at the very least, the world was kind of like in motion in terms of discussing and debating what's right and what's wrong. And obviously that you have your sides. You have your Palestinian side, you have your Israeli supporters. Pakistan, obviously, well and truly in the Israeli camp. Oh, sorry, misspoke. Well and truly in the Palestinian camp. I got lost looking at my eyes. I probably, but yeah, well and truly in the Palestinian camp since time immemorial. Obviously, Shah Mehmood Qureshi comes on this program on CNN, hosted by a journalist I wasn't aware of before this. So happy that she got some some recognition after that. She went completely viral um, and picked up a lot of street cred, so to speak. But so he comes on the show, presenting Pakistan's view on the recent events in the Middle East, and I thought it was going to be like a done deal. I mean, right? I mean, it's very hard to mess up. It's very, very hard to mess up when you're talking about Palestine in front of a Western audience, especially when they know exactly what you're going to say. Um, it's 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 what transpired was beyond my comprehension, because Shah Mahmood Qureshi is a very smart individual. As far as I know, I think, if I'm not mistaken, he is an Oxford grad, right? He has the highest education. He has been a foreign minister in one of the previous governments in Pakistan. Foreign ministry comes very natural to him. He is a good speaker as well. He's a good orator, very one of those rare orators in Pakistan who was good in both Urdu and English, um, and has a good grasp in world history, and so do expect from a foreign minister. He comes on and blatantly, inadvertently, I'm trying to give him benefit of the doubt, um, tries to make a very anti-Semitic remark against uh, him. In his head, he was talking about Israel, the country, but it came out really, really bad. And it did for all money, in my opinion, felt and sounded like an anti-Semitic trope. Um, which was obviously, quote unquote, deep pockets, and controlling the media. These classic examples that get thrown around whenever this is 101, anti-Semitism 101. First page, these are the first few lines you'll read. That what is anti-Semitism in examples. These are the probably first few examples you'll read. So that was the surprising bit, that a guy who's well read, who's well educated, who's been doing this for a while, he knows what he's doing, right? To come on CNN in an interview which is like softball, nothing, controversial. The whole country's behind you. You can't the whole Islamic, empire, or nations are behind you. Again, there's nothing you can say that can be controversial. You know, you could just, it's a very, you go in, throw a few, Israel back off, and Palestinians have right to self determination and all of that, and you move out. That's it. Very easy gig. And he goes in and mentions the media and deep pockets. Um, Before I get into my frustrations with that, the reaction to that in Pakistan was, to my surprise, even in the anti-government, anti-PTI circles. Obviously, there were some who took advantage of this slip, and went to town on Shah Mehmood Qureshi, and I mean, there's no complaints there. But to my surprise, a lot of the responses were like, "Yeah, so what? He's right. You know, Israel does have deep pockets. They have control of the media, and so what's wrong? He's talking about Israel, the country, not not the religion. So how is it anti-Semitic?" And um, and then amongst that, obviously, you have my favorite journalist, unfortunately, decides to have a pop in. Mehdi Hasan, I'm referring to, he kind of confirms that that was anti-Semitic. It was inclining towards anti-Semitism, and it was a trope. Um, and of course, you have your Pakistani nationals and patriots just filling his Twitter mentions for a good part of a week, and going to town on him, on him being a sellout. And when he was at Al Jazeera, he said something, and now he's at CNBC saying something else. Which in itself, I mean, I'm just now thinking about it and talking about it and feeling, really, really pissed off, because it's such a lazy thing to do, to attack a journalist like Mehdi Hasan. I mean, if you really want to attack him, you go prepared. You go really, really prepared. You don't touch the man if you don't know what you're talking about. That's what the Pakistani people thought they were going to do. In my opinion, that was just ill advised, and it was just ridiculous. They made themselves look even more embarrassing. And of course, what followed was Mehdi Hasan going to town on them as well, and just treating them like he does whenever he's called upon that way. I mean, notably a few months back, when he called out India for, I think, during the COVID crisis or something. I don't remember, but he was discussing India, and the Bucks obviously started to go to town on him, and he said, "Oh, this is how nationalistic people who are like blinded by loyalty react." And you know inevitably he was going to bring that up again, when talking about Pakistani trolls, which is a shame, because if you I would be very disappointed that if I was one of those trolls and I'm being compared to Bhakts, I would be disappointed, because not just because I've been compared, I've been called out on Twitter, but mostly because I know how bad the Bhakts are, how blind they are, and if I'm being compared to them, that's embarrassing for me. So for them to really dig themselves that much of a that deep a hole where they're now sitting down and being compared with the Bhakts in India, that in itself is a tragedy, in my opinion. So lo and behold, he comes back and makes these arguments. And I had a little bit of a back and forth with my brother on this as well, where he, although did agree that he did make kind of anti-Semitic inclinations, did Shah Mehmood Qureshi, but he felt that he was discussing the country. And I honestly, unpacking his statement, to be very fair, frank, and honest, I think in his head, and I know it felt like that as well, he was talking about the country. But the reason why I'm frustrated is that a person well read as him, well educated as him, he made a very lazy passing statement about like this media and deep pockets thing. That was just so bizarre. It was almost as if, like, you have these unknown ministers, and they come in and they have their uh, 15 minutes of fame in front of international media, and they make these stupid remarks, and they feel like they've become heroes. Um, I think I've discussed uh, the whole you know point in a lot of detail, more detail than I wanted to, but I think now it's time that I actually try and really unpack it. Um, it is fair. I'll be very honest. I'll give the benefit of the doubt to the Pakistani trolls that went after Mehdi and in support of Shah Mehmood Qureshi. It is fair for them to feel unjustly done in that interview where the conversation was Palestine and then it just diverted into this anti-Semitic trope and this is disrespectful, blah blah blah. It just changed the topic completely. Um, I can understand why they were frustrated by that. Um, but I think they also need to understand something. I mean, I'm addressing the trolls here. I never thought I would say that, but um, you guys also need to understand, boys. When you come on Western media, and you know this beforehand, this is not a surprise. You're not coming in and you're like, "What? Really? CNN is doing partial reporting on this issue." If that's a surprise to you, then I've got a bridge that you should buy. Um, but if you're coming on Western media, you know exactly what to expect. So you have to watch your words. And then, so एक तो ये part है कि you have to be very careful in how you talk and what you talk about. एक और उसका हिस्सा ये है कि anti-Semitism is real. It's not you probably, in your Twitter, outburst, in your little history, you've just woken up right now. You haven't seen or read, how much difficulties the Jews in Europe went through. So anti-Semitism is a reality. Um, and then suggesting, okay, deep pockets and control of the media. This is not in admiration or praise for the other party. This these were the kind of statements that were used in Europe, uh, even in America, to rile up people against the Jews, to make them look bad, to make them look like evil people. And that's what created the hatred that people had for Jews. तो आपको ये समझना पड़ेगा कि when you say these things, the reason why they're taken up as, they're treated as anti-Semitic tropes is that इसकी एक पूरी history है. These are not isolated statements. इसकी पूरी history है. Now, which is what makes me sad that Shah Mehmood Qureshi is the last person to not know this. He knows this much better than I do. And I read a statement on Twitter as well by a young lady. I'm forgetting her name. That's beyond the point. But apparently, she had a one-on-one, not one-on-one, but she had an interaction with Shah Mehmood Qureshi after that interview, and she did give him a piece of his mind, piece of her mind about how ill-advised it was for him to use those two terms. And apparently, he did listen uh, to the lady. Apparently, an American, Pakistani American woman who had interaction when Shah Mehmood Qureshi was there. He was meeting with the diaspora in New York. So she met him and gave him a piece of her mind about that, and he was open to listen and he understood and probably even realized that it was a mistake. So um um so इसका एक पूरा context है, to all my friends who were sharing all of this and like deep pockets and using this kind of like just like a joke, right? Deep pockets. I mean, it's not, guys. You're harming the struggle of Palestinian freedom and liberation more by being the stupid troll. Be a little educated in terms कि यार हमें know your enemy. If you want to treat the Israelis as your enemies, know them, understand the media, the dynamics of the media. The moment you said the two words, that interview was done for him. It was a lazy attempt to whatever point he was trying to make. Now, does that mean, and this is me paraphrasing Mehdi Hasan in response to people criticizing him for supporting the fact that it was anti-Semitic, Mehdi very rightfully said that Is the media coverage on Israel and Palestine partial? Yeah. Is it partial towards Israel? Yeah, it is. But there's a way to talk about this. There's a way to address it, especially when you're going to the very media that you're blaming them to do. So, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to take your statement in good faith. Okay, no, 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 he actually meant it in a good way. He didn't. He wasn't anti-Semitic. Fuck no. I mean, that's even more stupid than the statement originally you made. So you got to understand that. You got to understand this lazy tropism of anti-Semitic slurs. This is going to harm you and the cause in the long run. I mean, let's see who the leaders are who emerged from this latest crisis. They're not like your clerics. They're not like your what you would consider practicing Muslims. The heroes that emerged were people off social media, people who probably outside of this environment you would be coming, you as in Muslims who are short-sighted would be coming at them and saying that they're not modestly dressed. I'm talking about the hadiths of this world, the Dua Lipas of this world. So these are the type of heroes that are emerging. Why? Not because they're going out and doing anti-Semitic bullshit. They're actually addressing the Palestinian cause by using Palestine as the the crux of their discussion. Attacking the other team will not make your team better. Raising the voices of your team will make your team better. So I do understand that where they were coming from. I do understand the Pakistani trolls were ill-advised. I mean, how stupid do you have to be to go after Mehdi Hasan on this particular topic? You're going after a man. You're saying this to Mehdi Hasan. Imagine this. You're saying to Mehdi Hasan that you are a sellout, that you consider criticizing Israel and their influence anti-Semitic. You're saying this to Mehdi Hasan, a man who just a couple of years ago had this massive debate on Intelligence Square in London, and it's on YouTube. So go look it up. Where the topic of the discussion was: is anti-Zionism anti-Semitic? And he opposed the motion, and he won the debate. I highly advise people who want to understand what the difference between the two is. So you're telling him, this guy who's been vocal than any Pakistani journalist, who's done more for the cause of Muslims being deprived of their basic rights and human dignity around the world, be it your Hazaras, be it your Uyghurs in China, be it the Iraqis, the Syrians, the Yemenis, the Palestinians. So single-handedly, has done more to contribute to the Muslim pop culture, in media than any of the Pakistani journalists combined. I mean, I just had Zarar sir. It was an honor discussing and talking journalism with him. But unfortunately, even he on Twitter was under this impression that whatever Shah Mehmood Qureshi said was misconstrued. Of course it was, but that was a stupid thing for him to say. Now I don't know if he talked about this in his show. I didn't watch it yet, but yeah, I mean, stuff like that does happen. Pakistani journalists are not even fit to um, you know uh, polish Mehdi Hasan's shoes. With all due respect to shoe polishing as a business, they're not. So for them to go after him, the trolls for them to go after Mehdi like that was ill-advised, to say the very least, and absolutely ridiculous and stupid, to say again the very least. Um, so it is what it is, right? I mean, you got to read the room, you got to read your audience. You have to really pick and choose your words, because the one mistake you make, that's how the odds are, unfortunately, like it or not. These are the odds that you face. This the odds are firmly stacked against the Palestinians and the people fighting for their rights. So You gotta play it smart. You can't afford stupidity like what Shah Mehmood Qureshi put up in the media, or anybody that for that matter. I think I heard in London or somewhere in the UK there was anti-Semitic slurs, being chanted in pro-Palestinian, rallies in the UK or in the US as well. There were like anti-Semitism on the rise, people getting attacked. And then you have the likes of Sarah Silverman, who I really like as a comedian, but she winds me up a little bit, very little bit about when she talks about issues that um in even according to her she doesn't know. I mean, I know for a fact that it comes from a good place because it does feel like that she cares about the world and people living in it. She has been pretty vocally speaking against Israel, but I saw her video on Instagram and she was like, why do Jews have to always explain what Israel is doing? They're different. And she made it felt like um, Jews are always, cornered that way. Now, while I do agree with that, I do agree that Jews or, people practicing Judaism, or even not, just heretically Jews, people are not required to be answerable for what their governments do in other part of the world. So Israel is not, there's no equation between Israel and a common Jew. There's no way, unless that Jew voted for the government in power and is his proponent and supporter of the ideology, then yes, they're answerable to a certain extent, but they're not even answerable to an extent when they're not even making those decisions themselves. But I have no problem with Sarah saying that. Obviously, she was looking after her own community, and that's completely fine. But I was waiting for her to really say, "Oh, actually, you know what? I now feel like I understand how Muslims feel." The moment there's an attack, the moment there's any terrorist activity, the moment there's some homosexual getting killed or jailed in Iran or whatever, we're in we're in the squared circle, fighting it out, answerable to everyone. So, with all due respect, Jews, I think we're all in the same boat there. We're also answerable to not just government. The government is easy because it's just one government. You can easily get out of it and say, "Hey, fuck the government. I don't care about what that government does. My religion doesn't teach that." We're answerable for anybody who just you know claims to be a Muslim. So that's something that just I came across and I was like, I gotta really get this off my chest as well. Um anyway, so yeah, that was that. I think just to sum it up, don't be anti-Semitic. I think be smart in how you're dealing with the cause, how you are addressing the plight of the people of Palestine. Anti-Semitism is just it's just anti-Palestinian in my opinion. In the context of this whole thing, it is utterly stupid. So say no to blind loyalties. You don't have to support everything your government does. There are people like Sarah who are actually praying that they don't have to be answerable. You guys are like incumbent. You're bringing this upon yourself to be answerable for whatever your government does. So don't let the government define your identity. Be your own identity. That's why I rant about this. Being free from these national identities from a perspective where it kind of blinds your judgment of what's right and what's wrong. um so yeah, move away from it. Just support the cause, but be smart about how you're dealing with it, especially in the media. All right, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It's very easy. You guys have done this for a million times for other content creators and podcast hosts, so I'm be really appreciative if you do the same here. Follow us on Spotify and Google Podcasts as well. If you are into audio podcast like me. So have a good rest of your day. Bye.